Hello everyone, this is Ohio Dan again. I wanted to make a video that is a little bit different than videos that I've made in the past, videos that I've made so far, in that I want to, instead of covering a particular topic, cover a response that I made to Paul Elam's most recent video explaining the MRM and how there's this MRA versus MGTOW kind of dichotomy within the MRM. And I want to explain my main kind of criticism of his message. First of all, I don't have anything against Paul Elam. I don't really know that much about him. You know, most of what I watch is MGTOW material rather than MRM material for the most part, I guess. And, you know, I know that he used to be one of the leaders on A Voice for Men. And I know that he has had disagreements with MGTOW in the past over whether MGTOW can get married and stuff like that. But I think that is pretty much ancient history at this point. Nonetheless, even though he does make some valid points in his video, one thing that I really strongly disagree with is where he claims that, like MGTOW, the MRAs aren't really interested in political and legal change, that's not their main focus. They would like for it to happen, just like MGTOW would like for there to be legal and political change away from gynocentrism and away and toward a better deal for men. But you know, he claims that MRAs, just like MGTOW, basically do not want to change the system. But then he goes on to describe how MRAs have tried to change the social and cultural narrative when it comes to feminism, you know, especially small f feminism, when it comes to basically people's mentality on men's rights, people's mentality on gender dynamics, and how men and women get along in marriage and relationships and all that stuff that goes with it. So my criticism I made in a comment that I left on the video, and I wanted to go ahead and basically just read that whole comment as I made as an argument on his channel. So the main criticism I have with the perspective presented on his video is that the claim that trying to advocate for change socially and culturally is qualitatively different from changing the institutions at a political and legal level. Either case is an example of a different strategy for working within the system to effect some sort of change. In this case, change that's hopefully for the benefit of men. However, when the system itself doesn't allow for any realistic avenue towards success, it becomes a futile effort to try to change any elements within that system to achieve a better outcome. Our system is incurably gynocentric not only because the legal standards and political norms are unfair for men, but also because the prevailing cultural attitudes and social expectations further limit men's ability to have positive relationships with women. To differentiate between these elements is to ignore the fact that they all take place within the greater system that makes up life in the Western world, particularly from a man's perspective. As an example, let's say we have a community of people that largely hates animals, and we are a group of activists who want to ensure humane treatment for cats or dogs or whatever animals that you care about. One strategy we can use is to advocate for legal change regarding animal welfare, while also supporting political activism towards this end. Another strategy is to try to change the hearts and minds of the people directly, for example, by showing them the horrors of animal abuse or creating a film detailing why animals should have rights. In either case, though, whether we're looking at this politically and legally or socially and trying to change people's minds directly, in either case, we're still dealing with a society that predominantly hates animals. And any success we have is completely dependent on elements within the system changing to our benefit and changing to the benefit of whatever cause you support. I will argue that men are in this exact position. While the current system is completely dependent on men to continue building and maintaining society, Men are not respected or valued for their contributions, and are often tossed aside once they've served their particular purpose. Our fatally gynocentric society makes advocating for change at any level the equivalent of trying to get a community of people who hates animals to participate in an animal welfare organization or movement. While it may be possible to change the opinions and viewpoints of a few in such a system, the vast majority of people will not support such a change. And so I believe that these efforts are completely futile. The level at which this attempt at change takes place makes no difference once man's position in society is fully recognized. Therefore, while I consider myself a tacit supporter of the MRM and believe it's possible for a MGTOW man to also take parts in men's advocacy if he thinks there's something in particular that can be accomplished, the overall conclusion I've reached is that Western society will most likely need to collapse under its own weight of debt, gynocentrism, and irresponsibility. And I think most MGTOW have this view as well, that the system itself is not going to change, and that we've pretty much, in all likelihood, even though I hope it's not the case, we've probably already crossed the kind of point of no return. It doesn't look like things are really going to change for men in terms of changing the system. Expecting the system to change in any extensive way in terms of culture, politics, society, or the law is based on an incomplete acceptance of all the factors men face in seeking a viable path for a good life, which is no longer possible through traditional relationships or family units. Men must first go their own way, removing themselves from the current system, and only then decide what causes or movements they find worthy of their time and attention. And that was the end of the comment that I've made. You can go to Paul Elam's video and see, the discussion that we had. But essentially, my position is that whether you're looking at changing society or changing the political and legal environment or trying to get people to be aware of what it's really like to be a man today, where you don't really have an incentive to participate in traditional structures, where, and we know all the talking points. Both MRAs and MGTOW know the talking points that, men get destroyed in family law courts. Men are much more likely to commit suicide. Men do pretty much all the hard work in society with some exceptions. Men basically just are told that they're bad and women are good no matter what the situation is. Boys are raised to believe that women should be put on a pedestal and that they should be special, but yet at the same time they're equal to men. All of these things that everyone in the men's rights movement and in MGTOW can see, trying to change society so that this is no longer the case doesn't really matter when society basically hates men. Society basically, not in a direct sense, not in an overt sense usually, but, society doesn't really care about men. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. And so the idea that there's somehow a qualitative difference between, working socially and legally for change versus trying to change people in society, there is no real difference there as far as I'm concerned. And you really have to go your own way first, as I've discussed before. If you believe that there's a particular law that can be changed, or if you believe that, you can get certain people to understand better, men's position in society, or if you can explain male versus female nature in a way that you think is, going to be receptive for people, then in that case, it makes sense to, maybe go along with that and maybe make an effort to advocate for some sort of change. But overall, at least for as far as I'm concerned, there's really just no difference between advocating for political change versus social change. There's really no difference in saying we need to change the culture or saying we need to change the laws, because all of that is intertwined in one gynocentric mess that I don't think we can get out of without having a new society. And I don't see that as a positive thing. I see that as just being the way it is. I think that's reality. And so that's the difference of opinion that I have compared to the view on that's expressed on An Ear for Men. The difference of opinion that I have is there are major differences between saying I'm going to go my own way. I'm going to make the best version of myself that I can be. And if there comes a time where I can advocate for positive change, I will. But in general, that's just not going to be the case in a society that's kind of already long gone and already has gotten to a point where it hates men. There's a difference between that perspective and advocating for change directly in any form and having that be your primary goal, whether it's at the political level or not. Whether you're trying to appeal to people through a movie or documentary or whatever the case may be, that is all advocacy. And so my main disagreement is that this kind of approach still involves trying to change the system. Even if you're not focusing on politics, even if you're not focusing on the law, you're still trying to change the system. You're still trying to fight a gynocracy, basically, that doesn't value men, doesn't want men to be leaders, and doesn't care about male issues. And so, regardless of what your approach is, in general, that's a futile effort because it's just too late. And men are realizing that their situation, if they take on a traditional role, is just not feasible, and that it's better to go your own way. At least many men are figuring this out. It's better to go your own way and then do what you think is best as far as your political or social or cultural motivations are concerned, and to focus on what improves your life and improves the lives of the people that you care about, and try to reach out when you can, but acknowledge that the system itself, no matter what part of the system you're focused on, is probably not going to change for the better, and things are going to continue to get worse for men, and that more men need to be aware of the situation that they're in Western society today.